This lens may not be clinical. It may not be in the textbooks, but you will know if it is yours. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll recognize it in your story. You'll remember it in your body. And your soul will tell you it is true, not because it left marks on the outside, but because it lived inside your breath. This is captivity, and this is the lens that names it. Has your essence, your life force, your spirit, your gifts, your core ever felt like it was held hostage in your own home? Not taken by strangers, not stolen in the night, but held in captivity by people who claimed love and then claimed you. Because captivity doesn't always look like a locked door. Sometimes it looks like a family photo, a church pew, a dinner table, a good childhood on the outside, and yet inside you always felt like you were dying. This is one of the most confusing realities for survivors. You were clothed, you were fed, you were presentable, but you suffered as though you were an orphan. Not because you lacked a house, but because you lacked safety. Not because you lacked people, but because you lacked covering. Not because you lacked structure, but because you lacked love that didn't cost you your very existence. So you learned the most devastating survival skill of all. You had to disappear in front of the people who claimed to be family, to be safe. Trauma therapy often calls it dysfunction, enmeshment, narcissistic family systems, religious trauma, attachment wounds, complex PTSD. And yes, those words can help you name the impact. But the captivity lens says this wasn't only trauma, this was architecture. A system that required your collapse to stay stable. A blueprint that demanded your compliance to keep the peace. A structure where your spirit was not allowed to stand upright. You didn't just have hard parents or a hard family dynamic. You lived inside a system where you were not allowed to become. Survivors say things like this. It felt like they lived inside my head. And sometimes it's deeper than that. It felt like they lived inside your body, inside your nervous system, inside your soul space, the place where only Jesus should have been. Because this kind of captivity doesn't just control behavior, it colonizes permission. It teaches you, you don't get to have your own thoughts. You don't get to have your own needs. You don't get to have your own joy. You don't get to have your own calling unless it serves the system. That is not love. That is occupation. Your gifts that came from God, your sensitivity, your discernment, your empathy, your depth, your brilliance, were not celebrated as holy gifts. They were consumed or limited or shamed. You didn't get to grow into them. You didn't get to grieve into them. You didn't get to experience your full potential because your gifts weren't treated as yours. They were treated like supply, like a resource to manage the adults, to stabilize the system, to keep the peace, to prevent consequences, to carry what wasn't yours. So instead of becoming a child, you became a regulator. The orphan paradox. I had parents, but I was alone. This is captivity in one sentence. You were cared for, but not cherished. You were included, but not known. You were present, but not protected. And the grief of that reality is sharp because it's invisible. It does not sound dramatic. It does not always look like abuse to outsiders. But your body knew, your spirit knew, because you were walking around with a quiet internal truth. I am not safe here. I feel buried. I feel bound. And nothing in your essence felt free. You walked on eggshells to perform every expectation perfectly, but it was never enough because the goal was never good behavior. The goal was control. The goal was to keep you small enough to manage, quiet enough to contain, loyal enough to stay, useful enough to feed the system. So you became hyper-attuned. You studied the adults who claimed to be your parents, to be the version they needed so you could be safe. That isn't maturity. That is captivity training. That is a child learning. My existence is only allowed if I can predict the weather. Subdue it, calm it. And here is where the captivity lens becomes different than anything else. Your essence was not fully taken. It can be invaded, suppressed, trampled, hidden, held hostage, pressured into surrender, forced into collapse. But it cannot be truly stolen unless you give it away. And even then, Jesus is a redeemer. He preserves what was holy in you. He hides what predators tried to access. He shelters what they tried to consume. So even if you lived collapsed in spirit for years, even if you forgot yourself to survive, your essence was still yours, held, kept, preserved by the one who made you. Why therapy helps but doesn't fully free. Therapy can help you name patterns, regulate your nervous system, build boundaries, understand trauma responses, grieve losses, reclaim parts of yourself, and that matters deeply. But the captivity lens says some prisons are not only physical, some prisons are not only psychological, they are spiritual. Some bondage is not just relational, it is soul level. And when the architecture lives in the unseen, insight alone cannot sever it. That's why some survivors still feel trapped even after years of growth. They aren't failing, they're still carrying something that requires deliverance. What real Jesus does: restoration without shame. Jesus does not look at a survivor and say, "Why didn't you leave sooner? Why didn't you know? Why did you stay?" He knows you were surviving. He knows you were a child. He knows you were groomed before you had language. And when you are ready, when you finally say, "Only you belong in my soul space," he does what no system can do. He returns your essence to center. He clears what invaded. He restores what collapsed. He seals what was porous. He gives you sovereignty, not just boundaries, not just independence, sovereignty. May the one who saw you when no one else did draw near to the place where your soul was taken captive. May he step inside the rooms you didn't know were blocked and bound and speak your name with such clarity that every false claim begins to fall away. May the memories that once confused you be held now in his knowing, not for re-entry, but for witness. May you feel the exhale of your own breath returning, your own spirit stretching, your own voice rising gently into space that once collapsed around you. You were not wrong. You were not too much. You were not behind, and you were not to blame. You were captured, but now you are being set free. Jesus knows how to find the child who couldn't leave and the adult who still feels haunted. He knows how to unhook every tether and remove every counterfeit from your soul space. He knows how to give you back your name and return your essence to you, and he will. May his light enter the crevices. May his hands break the locks. May his breath return to the places that went still, not in force, not in fear, but in resurrection. You are not too late. You are not too far gone, and your freedom does not depend on performance. It begins here with the one who always knew what they did to you and what he came to restore. You were never forgotten. You are being returned to yourself, and the captivity will not have the final word. Jesus will. Amen. If you resonate with this lens, there's more. The Discernment and Deliverance playlist contains 6 rare predator architectures mapped through survivor clarity and spiritual sight, not to re-traumatize, but to bring the hidden into the light so that Jesus can set you free. The link will be below.